Hi, Omeakios here with another Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile, and this time I'm showing my Arcana Force deck. So this deck got a lot of new support, and it's actually now it's an actual deck now, and it's pretty good, but of course it has a lot of weaknesses. The main strategy is to turn skip your opponent with the word, but it also has a secondary strategy of skill drain on legs basically. But of course still this is not a competitive deck. It's mostly casual, I think, because of the fact that you always have to have light barrier. Otherwise this deck can't really do its plays without relying on luck. I really never want to rely on coin flipping in this deck. You always want to have light barrier so you can choose the effects. So I guess let's go to the deck. Goes first the monsters, using 1 Arcana Force X, the Dark Ruler. This card is pretty amazing because you're going to summon it out with the fusion, and then you can choose the haze effect to attack twice, which means if you turn skip one and you summon this, you just that's the game more or less. Then of course I'm using Arcana Force 21, the Word. Of course this is the main win condition of the deck. In the end phase, you always choose the heads effect. The end phase, you tribute 2 of your monsters and to turn skip your opponent. And that's really amazing. Of course, this strategy is pretty vulnerable to things like pistols. Of course, they can also, impermanence it before you can tribute your monsters, stuff like that. But still, of course, it's really amazing. Then using 3 of the Arcana Force 15, the Fiend. And of course you can discard this card to add light barrier from a deck to the hand. Of course that's the effect is very crucial. The other effects don't really matter because you're not going to summon it very often to your side. But of course those effects can come up sometimes, I guess. Definitely very needed. Then I'm using 3 Arcana Force 19, the Sun. Definitely really amazing as well. It's some kind of extender and a starter. So you can spell summon it if you have a card with a coin tossing effect on the field. And of course, heads effect is to set any spell that has a coin tossing effect. And also, it has effect that destroys all the background, both sides, more or less. Then with both effects actually really amazing. And it's definitely one of the main starters in the deck. Then I'm using 3 of the Arcana Force 5, the Hierophant. Really good as well. It's one of your main extenders, I guess. You mostly, of course, use the Tails effect in this case because actually I'm not using any of the other level 4s or lower Arcana Force. Maybe I should play something, I guess, but right now I don't really have any of them anyway, so I think it's pretty much fine. With the Tails effect, you can summon any Arcana Force from the deck to your opponent's side, but that doesn't really matter because, of course, the fusion allows you to contact fuse with the monster from both sides. That's definitely really good, and also it has an add effect that you discard it and then your opponent can't respond to effects, cannot respond with anything if you're summoning your Arcana Force monsters. That definitely is really good. Then I'm using kind of an engine to search out my pieces. So I'm using 1 Desperado Barrel Dragon, mostly because of its graveyard effect. If it's sent to graveyard by any means, you can search for level 7 or lower monster that has a coin tossing effect from a deck to hand. It's definitely really amazing for that. And with that, of course, I'm using 3 Unreal Knights, which send it out to the graveyard, and that is your Desperado Barrel Dragon. Also, I used to use the 2-sided goddess in this deck instead of this engine, but I figured because I can also use Foolish Boreal, and then I also use Reinforcement of the Army to search up this card. I think it was more consistent to actually use this particular engine, because it's just more consistency more or less. But of course the downside is that if you throw your Desperado Barrel Dragon, the engine is kind of useless, but I think the risk is worth it. Then some hand traps. Obviously this deck doesn't really have a lot of room for non-engine, but I just use the best cards that are available. So of course 3 Ash Blossoms, obviously really amazing. Of course you can also negate your opponent's 4 Allots. 4 Allots doesn't really affect this deck that much because you're going to turn skip anyway. but still really nice. And of course I'm using 3 effect whalers. I think it's still pretty decent, I would say. Now this is the spell cards. And traps I guess as well. Of course I'm using the 2 light barriers. This actually might be the most important card in this deck, because this card allows you to choose the effects. If you're summoning your Arcana Force monsters, you would have to flip the coin, but with this you don't have to flip the coin, you can just choose the effect, which makes this deck actually work. Of course it's a really old card, but now you have so many ways of searching it as well. But of course if you don't have it, then you have to rely on luck, and again, like I said, you don't want to ever do it. It also, in your standby phase, you have to flip a coin, and then if it's tails, this card's effects are negated. That doesn't really matter, because you just activate another one most of the time when you turn skip your opponent anyway. So they're only pretty good. There's an extra effect as well. If you destroy a master or battle with Arcana Force, you gain the life points back as well. That one is very nice. Then I'm using 3 of the Light Force. This is the only, I guess, 1 card or 1.5 cards starter that pretty much starts the whole combo on its own, because you can of course discard a card and then search for your Fiend and Sun, for example, when you start off your combo. And this is the only card that can actually do it on its own without having to have another card. Then I'm using 3 Arcana Reading. This is either the best card or the worst card, because obviously you have light, but you can choose the effects. But of course, Haze effect, you're going to choose that obviously, you can search for any coin tossing card. But if you don't have light barrier, and you have to flip a coin, the Tails effect is that your opponent can search out any card from the deck. So pretty much, if you don't have light barrier and you flip your coin, and you flip Tails, you pretty much probably should scoop it up. Because it's just, because they can't get anything pretty much, so definitely, yeah, I'm not sure if I should even play 3 of this card, but I think it's just too good not to run, like, because most of the time you're going to have access to light barrier most of the time, but sometimes things can happen. Then using 2 Arcana Spread. Most of the time you're going to use the Tails effect in this case, because you can summon any coin tossing monster from the graveyard, so that includes the Word, for example. That's the main way you're going to summon it out to your side of the field. And Haze effect is to summon any level 4 lower monster on the deck. Arcana Force, that can come up sometimes as well. If you can't summon out the Word, so you can go into Vision instead. And has a pretty good graveyard effect as well to recycle your coin tossing cards. Definitely is very nice. I'm using 2 just in case. You only really need 1 to turn skip, but in the grind game it can come up more or less. Then I'm using 1 Foolish Puddle to send that Desperado Battle Dragon to the graveyard to search out my pieces. Then 1 Swords of Tatami to search out Armor Knight. 1 Prosperity, obviously, because you have to get your pieces more or less. Then I'm using 2 Triple Tactic Stunt. Definitely a card that I really like using sometimes, but I also hate using as well. But in this deck it's a little bit different, because you can always make sure that you can actually use this card, because you can summon out with the Hierophant your opponent's side. The Arcana Force have one that effective coin flip. Of course, they flip the coin, the effect doesn't really matter. But then they will have obviously effect activated in the opponent's side in the main phase. So then you can use this card to pretty much either send anything from the hand to the deck. That's very nice to send like Nibiru to the deck, for example, something like that. Or you can draw 2 cards if you're like missing a starter or something. Definitely, I think it's really good in this deck, but in particular, I could also use Trust in this deck, but I don't have any of that. Then of course I'm using that 1 Coldbag Grave, obviously, because this deck can be a little bit weak to hand up sometimes, especially like Tron Lockbird. But then of course the last card in the main deck are 3 Infinite Permanences. Very obvious. Now let's see the next deck. The only cards that really matter are 3 Arcana Force decks, the Chaos Ruler, which is one of the main conditions, either to search for any card that has a coin to sack effect. And also the heads effect is that you can summon any level 10 Arcana Force from the deck. You can use summoning additions. So both effects are very useful, because obviously if you already have access to Arcana Spread, you can just use it to summon out the Dark Ruler. Then next turn you can note Decay. Or if you don't have it, you can just search for Arcana Spread, then turn skip anyway. And also, of course, it has an extra ability that you have a light barrier on the field, then your opponent cannot activate any of their monster effects on the field as well. So that one is really amazing. Always the problem with this deck and this strategy is that taking, of course, a Pistol Druid's Worm ruins both strategies basically. It can ruin your your turn skip, and also it can just get rid of this card as well. So that's definitely very unfortunate. Then the rest of the deck doesn't really matter, but there are some like utility cards in there, and some are just prosperity banishes more or less. So Nightmare Unicorn, Phoenix to destroy backer obviously, Nightmare Kerberos, Lina because the whole deck is light obviously, Age of Mr. Earth because of course not Earth, I mean Moon, obviously because it's whole deck is fairing and just is spot removal. And of course Esper Knight, still obviously really amazing. And the rest are prosperity targets that are completely useless. It's just pretty much complete filler. Yeah, these don't really matter, just banish these 6 to search for, to use prosperity more or less. So, this was my Arcana Force Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile. I think this deck is very fun. But like I said, this deck has a lot of issues, especially weaknesses to Bestials, Troll, and Nibiru, and of course Shifter as well. So it's right now it's pretty much a casual deck, and because of the fact that you have to completely rely on Light Barrier, is not good as well. So I hope this deck will get more support in the future. For example, like a Link 1 will be really amazing, that can search Light Barrier on its own. That would be very nice, but probably not happening. So, I hope you enjoyed this Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile. For now, quit band, Omakios, out.